McDonald showing a bit of pace here. McDonald's got Myler inside him. Myler is being chased down. Here goes Hanley. Hanley, has he got the step? He certainly has. What a try that is from Leeds. And Austin, he can get some height on the ball, doesn't get great distance on that one. And Caesar is underneath it, and Caesar puts a little kick in, and Reece Martin gathers, and Martin will roll over the line and surely get the try. Jared O'Connor, Big Sam, lovely ball, Cameron Smith. Get the ball away to Darrell Alfords. Alfords steps past the first. Darrell Alfords comes back across the field. One-handed. Walters. Back it goes. It's picked up by O'Connor. O'Connor to Myler. Myler looking for Martin. Martin skipping back in field. Reece Martin. Martin, has he got the ball down? Martin celebrates his second of the night. Charging back, Sam Walters. Jack, there's nothing wrong with it, mate. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it, Jack. The ball's back with Blake Austin. Austin with the drop goal to win this game for Leeds.
Hi everybody, welcome to the Lot Pod, the Leeds Rhinos Lot 17A podcast, kindly sponsored by ACD&B, who are a branding and creative design agency based in Farsley, Leeds. They create standout brands. So for any companies out there that need a brand new logo or a brand refresh, just get in touch with ACD&B. Thank you, as always, to them for sponsoring us, for designing our fanzine, for producing the fanzine. The fanzine is still available, the second issue of the Lot 17A fanzine. If you just Google the Lot Pod store into Google, the first link there, that's us. The badges are available, all the Rowan Smith badges. I'm wearing them currently now, believe Rowan. They're available, all the other badges, along with the brand new Lot 17A fanzine. Thanks to ACD&B for producing that. It is amazing. The first batches, plural, got posted. People have been feeding back to me, and they've just said it's bigger, it's better, it's outstanding. So this is the match review panel for Saints versus Leeds, and that intro, that amazing intro, was knocked up by my co-host, by our amazing Statman Reese. Well, that's some skill there, young man.
It was an idea that came to my head about 2 o'clock this morning when I still couldn't get to sleep. Yeah, still couldn't get to sleep after the game. Texting Laurie, like going, I can't believe that's just happened.
I love you, Laurie. I love you too, Reese.
But I owe you a massive apology because my belief had wavered. And I said we were going to lose, but you stayed strong, and I must now repent to the priest or the high priestess of the church that is Rowan. So please forgive me for my sins and forever, or for doubting us. Because what a night, what a game.
You are forgiven. Everyone's forgiven. There's no, we have no negatives in the church. People make mistakes. This is to everyone listening, to everyone watching. Just come back and join us. Join us back in the church and believe. What a game. It's time to review it. Who's on with us, Reese, today?
Straight from the news desk, it's Cameron. Hi, Cameron. How are you?
Hi. Can I just say great intro? Absolutely loved it.
Yeah, I had a bit
clap
too
it in,
fun.
Everybody. Everyone's clapping Spotify and iTunes. Clap it in.
Absolutely brilliant.
I had a bit too much fun.
Absolutely
doing that.
awesome. Awesome new intro. awesome game. So in terms of positives, there's loads. There's absolutely loads. So rather than just starting with positives, and we're just going to jump from one incident to the next try, to the comment. We're just going to cover all and everything. Our usual match review panels, me and Reese have tried to condense them into around an hour, haven't we, Reese? About an hour 10. We've tried to keep it in that kind of time limit. We've got a feeling that today's, as you're listening to this, will be longer. And I'm just going to say this now because I don't know how I feel. I'm kind of speaking to Reese prior to going live on this, how I feel I'm going to speak about John Wilkin. I don't know how I'm going to go about it. So this is just going to be an expletive warning, just in case for any children or any adults who don't want to hear a few swear words. You might hear some on this podcast. Reese, I'll start with you. Where do you want to start with this review? Go for it. Anywhere.
I think a player that we've been critical of in the first 2 rounds, who I think showed, 2 players actually that I think we've been highly critical of, that I think showed up. And the first one is Caesar.
Right. I've got 6 pages of notes, so I'm just going to go to the Caesar page. There we go. Go for it.
I just thought we'd been asking for an improvement, and not just an improvement, a vast improvement. And I thought Caesar's obviously great kick for the try for Martin, which obviously we heard in the intro. I thought he's ran with the ball much better. Obviously got 7 meters in his running, which is obviously a lot more than the 4 he got in the previous week. But he just looked more dynamic with the ball, taking the ball to the line. I just thought he was just much better in general, controlled the game.
It's quite coincidental, Cameron, that the week leading up to the whole game, Aidan Caesar kind of says, I think it was to the Evening Post, can't remember but he said, I'm going to get more on the ball, I'm going to run more, I'm going to control the team. But it was almost as if we're a week. This should have been the whole game. Does that make sense? But we're just glad it's happened, aren't we?
Definitely. I think there's a misconception about Aidan Caesar that his best assets is like, being a controlling half and like kicking and passing and moving the ball. Like he's best when he actually like takes on defenses, because it puts that doubt into people's minds, and he's actually really good at it. And for some reason, I don't know if he's not always given that license or what, but we look 10 times better when he gets his hands on ball and he runs at teams. An example that always springs to my mind is that try he scored at Magic Weekend against Cass. Just needs to do that every week. I'm not saying he needs to get tackled every time he touches ball. It's finding that balance in it. Sometimes he does need to pass it, and sometimes you want to run it because you keep defenses on the toes. I mean, look at what Lewis Dodd did to us. He ran it to score a try. So just needs to keep it going. When he runs, he's actually one of my favourite Leeds players to watch.
Yeah. I thought he had a really good game, Reese. As you said, especially me, I've really, really kicked him the past couple of rounds, but he turned up, he ran the ball well, he passed the ball well. His kick it was a Martin try, wasn't it? It was absolutely on just perfect. And you have to take into consideration that he's under pressure.
Right.
It was almost as if he caught it and then dropped it straight onto his foot in one move.
Yeah, I was fully expecting him to take the tackle.
Yeah.
And then for me to shout at him on TV. And to be honest, this is not really right to think this, but when he went down with a head injury, I thought, great. Because that means Lehman will play 7. I think Cam ended up going in 7 actually when he did for his HIA. But no, like that. Yeah, he just took the ball. I mean, Saints let him catch it for one. No one competed it. And
Alex Walden were a disgrace in that play.
Yeah,
I know, but then
Alex Walden were a disgrace in that play.
So them not competing it meant that if they'd competed for that ball of Aidan Caesar, the try wouldn't have stood because Jared was within 10 meters and he was offside of the kick.
Yeah.
So them just allowing Caesar to do it. But yeah, just the quick thinking from Caesar to put it through and probably the next player we should move on to, because again, someone that's not been that great or not been the usual person we've seen, but Reece Martin was absolutely phenomenal last night.
I'm going to say this.
Go on.
Carry on, sorry. 2
tries, was it? I think it was 12 tackle busts, 90 on meters. Like, he was back to his old best last night, was Reece.
If I were to say this, Cameron, Reece Martin's best game in blue and amber, would you agree?
Maybe. That one probably it sticks out more than any other, I suppose. I don't know if that's recency bias or what, but just his 2 tries. I mean, I could watch his second try over and over and over again. Just
stands up Wellesley, doesn't he?
Yeah,
Wellesley's got,
and he swats away Walmsley and Connie as well. Yeah, it's such a well taken try. I mean, the move before that's great anyway, but his finish, it's superb, and that's when he's at his best, when he's swatting the side players. But that was just the tip of the iceberg of his performance. Reece has pointed to it there with some of those stats. He just did seem like a bit of a nightmare for Saints to defend against. I think in some ways, you saw it last year at the Totally Wicked Stadium when Leeds obviously played away. I know we ended up getting battered, but there were times where we really sort of threw questions at Saints with how we were running, cutting inside. Harry Newman, scores that amazing try, and I think we can do that to Saints like no other team can. That ability to come inside and bounce off tackles. I want to see us do it even more, and players like Reece are key to that.
I think this Reece Martin try, I think it can't be overlooked just how good this try is. It's a genuine contender for try of the season. This, I know it's the 3rd round, but it comes. I think initially started on the right with Caesar to Nene, and then it comes back inside.
It was Olfert's originally that started it off.
Yeah, he cuts inside.
He cuts inside, pushes off
to O'Connor, gets to Reece. He steps Wellsby, just leaves him for dust, and then, like you say, bumps off Connie. And then all he has in front of him is Alex Walmsley, and he just says, "Just get the fuck out of my way. Just get the fuck out of my way, or I'm going to carry you with me, because I'm definitely scoring this try." And I just think, as I say, I can't remember, like Cameron says, it might be just because it happened last night as we record this, but I can't remember Reece Martin playing better. And like Reece, Statman Reece mentioned last week, he hasn't been his usual, because actually is, you could argue, our best player, most consistent.
He wore in 2022 anyway.
Exactly, and we haven't seen that. But last night, similar with Caesar and a lot of them, it kind of proved to us all that this do still have it, and the 2 rounds previous were just blips, and we probably should have won the whole game. But I would say that is, without a doubt, Reece Martin's best game.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? Because like last year, he was just consistently good, and he was a standout. But I think
World Cup as well.
It's hard to, obviously can't remember the details of every game, but yeah, it definitely stands out. Someone else that you mentioned as part of that try, who I thought again was a massive difference in how we were structured, and Andrew's referred to it in the comments, and that's Jared O'Connor.
Yeah, brilliant.
The big thing that struck out for me was his line speed and defense. He was leading out from the front of that, and we weren't waiting as much. He just controlled the game. I mean, and just little things like his pass for Austin's drop goal at the end. It's a perfect pass. Yeah, it's quick. It's right where Austin needs it. But just little things like that make you beat the world champions. But I thought Jared was absolutely insanely good again.
That's how I'd have set up every game. It's how I would set up every game pretty much. Is Jared starting at 9, and I know we didn't actually get to see what Cruz can do off the bench. It's just, I love Jared, but what is he really going to offer you off the bench? He's not really an impact player, but what we saw last night is the value he has when he starts. He's so strong defensively. He's not the biggest, but he's like, well, I think they call him Velcro, don't they? Because he just sticks to plays and he doesn't let go. He's so solid defensively. And he's a decent runner as well. I don't think he's quite got like the pace that Cruz has. But he's just such a steady away 9 to start a game with, especially against a team like Saints. He just makes us feel so much more secure. And then you bring Cruz on. So I was surprised that we didn't do that in rounds 1 and 2. And obviously, I think, well, we're going to be seeing him starting at 9 a lot for the foreseeable future, unfortunately, for Cruz.
Well, mainly because of the injury as well. But
yeah, exactly. That's what I mean.
O'Connor, Reece kind of touched on it there. I felt that Jared led the defence yesterday.
Yeah.
I felt like he was kind of, like Reece said, the first in, good contact, bucket loads of tackles. His composure, because in that moment when with the drop goal with Austin, it's so key that the ball is good to him, and that's easier said than done. Because it's the end of the game, Saints, people watching, everyone's aware of what's going to happen, and it all comes down to two people.
It's
From
execution.
Jared's execution and his composure. He's looking up thinking, right, he needs it. He needs that good ball, so he has half a chance. And Blake, because he knows, right, it's down to two people to win the game. And it can kind of be overlooked, Jared's age as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He's still really young. And the fact is, distribution, his composure, defense. I kind of said at the back end of last year, this year, when we were talking squad numbers, I said he should be our number 9. Should just say to him, we believe you now. We believe in you that you've made that transition, or you are going to be our long-term hooker. Reece, do you think now, in terms of Jared and the hooker position, do you think that's his? Think you're happy with him as a hooker now?
Yeah, no, that's happy as a hooker. There's no, but obviously he offers that utility when we need it, if we ever do need it. Because I think he could still probably do a bit of a job at loose if we need him to do it.
Yeah,
I'd certainly rather him be at loose than Donaldson. But he's got an opportunity now. We don't know how bad Leeming's foot injury is. It seems to be something that obviously quite bad. He could barely stand on it.
Yeah.
When he left, he had to get carried down the tunnel, didn't he? So, although Cam Smith's played it down a bit at the end in front of the TV, but just going to throw a name drop in there. I messaged Jared last night, and I said, obviously I thought he killed it. I thought him and Sam were class, and he said one back saying, "Yeah, Big Sammy killed it. Us Widnes boys felt like it was a derby."
Yeah, I like that.
So yeah, I thought he was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. But then the other defensive moment that I love from that game, in terms of not just someone leading from the front, when we needed to keep Saints down their end, Blake Costin, did he start?
Yeah,
I can't remember when he literally
him,
sprinted 10 meters and absolutely walloped him, and I was like, bloody hell.
I thought he had an awesome game.
Yeah, but that, again, just things like that, your leaders stepping up and setting the bar. In that defensive set, we had to keep them down there, because I think it was towards the last 10 minutes, you're talking about drop goal territory. Yeah. So Blake, as a leader, going, I'm taking responsibility to show what we need to be doing, and literally sprinting off the line, meeting that, I can't remember who it was, in the face, and just putting them on their arse. And then everyone else followed, and we had a really good defensive set after that. I was worried we'd follow the usual 60, 70 meters, and then Dodd would just kick a drop goal.
I think that set they put the high bomb in, and our very next set was when we won the penalty for Connie's late shot. So you can argue that set won us the game.
Yeah. Definitely. Do
you think Austin had a good game, Cam?
Yeah, I thought you were outstanding. Obviously the big moment is that composure to nail that one pointer, but just overall, I thought one thing I did notice is in pre-season, obviously it was like Caesar and Austin had changed sides, and like Rowan spoke about that in press conference and said, actually, I don't want them to change sides. I want them to be feel like they're free. And last night I really felt like they were free. Like there was that kind of, I didn't keep noticing going, all right, Caesar's on that side, Austin's on that side. They just seem to pop up everywhere. And I feel like it just made us so much better to watch. And they both just dovetailed brilliantly.
I think we're worse in attack when we have structure.
Yeah.
We always have been.
Just because when we're in the last 20, again, there was times where I thought, really, is this how we're finishing the set? Or is this really how we're going to challenge Saints? But when it gets a bit chaotic and unstructured, it's brilliant, and that's kind of why I liked us that we were throwing it wide at first, and they were talking about before the game about Hurrell's ability in sidestepping in defence, and obviously the first try came from a call. Cam Smith was saying it came from a call from Myler. We're on our 5 meter line, and it came out to ship it out wide. But I just think that chaos, and we're so good when it comes to when it's unstructured. And I think John Wilkin even said we're probably the best team in the league for attacking from deep in terms of creating those opportunities, which you look at Hull last week, and then obviously Hanley's try. But yeah, I think we look much better when it's a bit chaotic.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in a lot of ways, in some ways, the modern game almost calls for a bit more running with the ball and then trying to offload it. You know, the speed of things, really trying to tire teams out and get that quick ruck. That's what we got to do.
Yeah.
It came. Hanley's try came from that, didn't it?
Yeah.
From R5, straight out wide. Nene makes an awesome break. Absolutely toasts, venison,
yeah.
Absolutely toasts that young kid. Inside to Myler, inside to Hanley. Hanley just squares up Johnny Lomax and says, "Not today, old man." Nice step in for the
I
try.
thought Richard passed it too early. I was like, why
I
did
did.
him there? You know, I was like, you need to draw in Lomax now and then give it to Ash. But like, that's just how good Ash is, I suppose.
Awesome.
I think that was part of it though from Myler. I think Myler knew that Hanley has the pace and just trusted him to do it. That's why you
I
just
think
thought,
I think you're spot on there. I think that's exactly why he gave it.
He's backed his guy, didn't he, to toast Lomax, which is what he did. I loved Nene.
Nana. I said to the Cure, it's Nene. I'm in love. I just thought Nene was brilliant again.
I did. The only thing I don't like about him is I don't like how much he's covered in tape. But
yeah,
I'm hoping he's he's going to stick around. Carry on, sorry, Reese.
I just love his ability that where sometimes he just goes, he puts his hand up, I'm gonna take this ball from dummy half and I'm gonna run.
Yeah, it's me.
And I don't know why I love that so much. But it just him putting his hand up and doing thing is he does it a lot.
Oh, we lost Reese a little there.
Fast.
Oh, he's back. Are you back, Reese? He's dropping in and out. Cam, what did you make of Nene? Absolutely awesome last night.
Oh, yeah, brilliant. I'm intrigued to see if he stays on the right edge because he's done brilliantly.
That's interesting, yeah.
Yeah, he's done brilliantly over that edge. I think for some reason, it seems to really suit him up being over that side. And I actually think a lot of Harry Newman's best rugby has been played over on the left. You think when he came back from injury in 2021 and also that game against Wigan last year, you were on the left. So I'm kind of hoping that Nene stays on the right and Harry comes in and goes to the left. But yeah, Nene's brilliant. I know a lot of people question the signing, and I saw some people going, okay, I've signed Tom Opachik or however you pronounce his name, and we've got Nene McDonald. But actually, like the two performances I've seen from Nene, his explosive running. I mean, he made an insane break against Hull FC that kind of got forgotten because of all the sort of other things that happened in that game. And that break he made for that try yesterday, but it wasn't the only one. Like he did a lot of good runs, bouncing off a lot of tackles.
Oh yeah,
he's a walking highlights reel, and we needed a centre like that. I think because they can sometimes be the difference between winning and losing a tight game.
I said 2 weeks ago that I didn't want to make any judgment on Nene until I'd seen him play because I didn't want us to lose Sutcliffe. I don't give a crap about Sutcliffe anymore.
That was my next question, Reese.
Honestly, don't care. I think Nene's absolutely brilliant, and I'm so excited for Newman to come back because I think we'll have two of the most explosive centres in the Super League with Newman and McDonald. And that sort of Tony's mentioning in the comments that it reminds me of Joel Moon. That was mentioned in the coverage as well. I think Barry said that he reminds him of Joel Moon a bit as well. But yeah, I think that's a really, really, really good signing.
Not a bad comparison that to be like Joel Moon. Wow,
not at all.
He was absolutely awesome. I do think that both players, in terms of like Cam saying, Nene on the right, Harry on the left, I think they could just be fluid and similar to season Austin, and just I think they've both got that capability.
Tom Trbojevic for New South Wales. That's one of my favourite ever tactics I've seen in any game of rugby a few years ago, State of Origin, where Tom Trbojevic were playing at centre, but were just given that free role.
Just plays wherever they want. Yeah.
He was absolutely insane, and I want to see Harry and Nene do that. I think they can be so destructive.
I think the next player we have to talk about, and also kind of a bit of a mullet creeping in, Reese. It's Sam Walters.
Yeah, he's got a mullet.
He's got a little. It's been cut at the sides there. He's got a little mullet creeping in. So we'll have to. Obviously, we've got Cam's amazing mullet, which we'll talk about in a minute. But looks like it doesn't like Sam's mullet's creeping in. I mean, from the second Sam entered this game, I felt he changed it in our favour quite enormously. Would you agree with that, Reese?
It's a similar impact to Sangre last week at Hull, I think.
I've got that written fucking down here.
I've
got it written down here.
This
I
is
mentioned
not
it last week. The impact Sangre had coming off the bench last week. Sam had enormous impact, very similar.
Yeah, he carried really, really well.
The same person.
I thought he carried really, really well. He was great in defence. Obviously, we know about the tackle, which was a great hit. In a great hit that'll be celebrated. Yeah, his arm's a little bit untucked or whatever, but who gives a crap? It was he played brilliant, and again, it makes questions where he has been. I think, has he been injured, Cam, or has he been?
He had illness, according to Rowan. He had an illness towards the end of pre-season and a few bumps and bruises as well, apparently. So that's why. Because to me, he would have been in the 17 for round one. I would have had him made to Tom Allroyd. I think I said that on podcast just before the start of the season. Ironically, Tom Allroyd's gone. Must have heard what I said and gone, right, I'm going to be bloody brilliant, because I think he's actually started the season really well. But honestly, I'm really excited for our pack, not just this year, but like just moving forward. You've got Mikolai, you've got Tom Allroyd, you've got Sam Walters, you've got Sangare. Like, bloody hell, that's four. Because Walters is a prop, even though he don't want to be. So he
is a prop, but he's got that athleticism where, like we saw for the try for the offload, and he's got that ability. So he's just a different type of prop. I mean, Andrew's calling him good hands for a giraffe, which is true. But again, the vision for the try, and again, Cam was talking about it after the game and how Justin brought, I think Metaltia just bought in, didn't he? Which gave Sam the space, but he just did it really well. Went through the contact. So obviously, Cammy's there on his shoulder, but I thought Walt was brilliant, and I loved him giving the shit to Wellesby as well.
Brilliant. But we saw an offload or two. He got 2 assists. Sam Walters in pre-season. So this is clearly something that Sam, Rowan, the club have worked on him, breaking the line and looking for that offload, because he's got the height and he can just pop it off. And it were quite refreshing to see us, like Cam broke it down amazingly on the touchscreen with John Wells, kind of break that line, knowing that he's going to flick it out back for Cammy to slide in and score again. I think we'll have to talk about the hit, won't we? No, what did you call it, Reese? The tackle.
Yeah, it was a tackle. Look, yeah, his arm's slightly in or whatever, but I don't know where he's going to put that arm because Cam's there. But it just makes me laugh, because if that's on the other foot, then the Saints fans aren't complaining. And the thing that makes it worse is that Wellesby doing what he did to complain and obviously getting to Sam Walters' face, which was quite brave considering Sam Walters is about 1.5 feet taller than him.
Yeah.
He's made that commotion. That game doesn't stop if Wellesby doesn't do that.
It don't.
And they then play on, and then they kick and they put us down into our back end. So
they could have even set up at 1, couldn't they?
They could have even set up for the 1. So regardless of the hit, it's Wellesby's fault for reacting the way he did. They're being told not to run in. So regardless of the hit, and whether it's bad or not, it's Wellesby's fault for putting in the position that they did.
The two times I jumped off the sofa and celebrated were obviously Blake Austin's drop goal and Sam Walters' hit. Those are the 2 times I physically removed my ass from the sofa, jumped in the air and screamed. And I'm like, yes, that is amazing. There's nothing wrong with it. It was a beautiful, clean hit. Absolutely nothing illegal, and that is factual.
Yep.
Because we had the referee, the linos, the touch judge, the
video ref,
all look at it, and every single one of them just know that is a clean as a whistle, fresh hit. And that little bitch, Jack Wellesby, that petulant little bitch, I tell you now, when it came and Sky were looking at it and Wilkins like, no, Jack, as Reed's put in the intro for this, no, Jack, there's no wrong with it. There's no wrong with it. And then Sky were looking at it. That's when I was still stood up and I was like, they better not be thinking about sending this kid off or putting him in bin because it's a clean hit. And then when the words came out of Chris Kendall's mouth on that ref, I tell you, I genuinely had tears of laughter. And I'm being deadly sick. I was laughing so hard, I had stomach pain and tears were falling down my face because I knew Chris Kendall was going to penalise that petulant little bastard, Jack Wellesby. And I laughed, and it was delicious. I was just eating it. The delicious taste of that little bastard, Jack Wellesby, getting his petulance thrown in his face. Because prior to that, on the Sky coverage, and by the way, I'm on a rant now, so that you two have to,
really?
We might as well go, Reese.
Yeah.
No,
I'm just going to sit here.
By the way, anyone that actually went to the game, I implore you to watch the whole broadcast back from the start to finish, because the build-up is absolutely diabolical. The build-up of Sky, we might as well not have been there. We might as well just, poor Leeds, just patting us on the head. But I'll come to that. Because on the Sky coverage, for those who went to the game, when Wellesby runs in, and after the Walters hit, he runs in and they have a little to and fro. There's a tiny, tiny glimpse of that little bastard talking to Lewis Dodd, and he's smiling and laughing, like he's saying, "Oh, we're getting a penalty, or he's going to get sent off." It's a couple of seconds, and it exists. So then when Chris Kendall says, "No, dickhead," it's a penalty against you. I was just eating it. Oh, it was delicious. And I loved it. And it couldn't have happened to a nicer bloke.
It could have happened to a nicer team.
Or a nicer team. What did you make of it, Cameron?
My big problem with the whole thing is, can you remember the last time you saw a shoulder charge penalised? Like, it's not...
You see it penalised when it's contact to the head, a.k.a. Conrad Hurrell.
That's it. Like, I know they made it illegal. I think it was about 2013, wasn't it? Because Theo Farge, his heart stopped on pitch, didn't he? I think that's sort of when they went, right, we got to get rid of this tackle. But like, I've seen loads of shoulder charges in the last few years, but because there's been no contact with the head, they've not penalised it. So like, to me, I just thought, right, they've sort of stopped stamping out that tackle unless they can't make contact with the head, unless it's actually dangerous. So then to see him like raging about it, it's just like, I hadn't seen a shoulder charge penalised in so long, and we've managed to end up having a major talking point being about one, just because it were a good tackle.
That's because Saints lost their heads though, and I was texting Lottie about this, I think it was this morning, saying who lost their heads worse, Saints on Friday or Catalan in the playoffs?
Very similar, wasn't it?
Both instances, the teams just lost their head. And, obviously we've seen the scenes at the end with Walmsley marching Percival off the pitch.
Little bitch.
Again, Percival,
He's another one.
Why would you do that with Walmsley? Walmsley's like, you'd batter you.
I was really surprised by St Helens. That they did lose their heads. These are the 4-time reigning Super League champions. They've just gone and beaten Penrith in their own backyard and showing some great mental strength. And it's only Leeds. And bloody hell, they've beaten us so many times since 2018. It were 12 wins in a row. Like, what the hell happened? Like, how is it as simple as no James Roby? Like, I don't understand. This team is supposed to be the pinnacle. And, I believe they were the pinnacle in terms of, they are the pinnacle in Super League at the moment. But also, like, just their mental strength in finals. And yet, they're cracked. I've been trying to think since last night, about when Leeds were really good. Trying to think, did we ever have a game where we just went nuts? Like, everyone just lost their heads. I mean, you could maybe say when Kev got sent off that time, but I still think that's hilarious.
That was really satisfying, though, and it was nice to see Kevin go a bit mad, wasn't it?
I can't really think of a time where we lost our heads when we were at our peak in the same way that they did last night. It really took me by surprise.
When we dominated the sport, we were the heroes. We were the good guys. We were the gentlemen. We had manners. We were polite. This Saints side and some of the fans, they're just entitled.
Well, they're just used to having things go their own way, and obviously decisions go their way. The 2019 grand final, where decision went their way, they shouldn't really won that game. The semi-final against Salford last year, there's some calls in that game which were a bit towards them. So the
Knowles ban, the Wellesby ban,
the Knowles ban,
Wellesby getting away with them this year on Jack Broadbent.
Yeah, so it's just like Yeah, you've had it all. You've had it all your way. But I think, well, they all threw the toys at the pram, even though the crowd didn't. There was instances of people trying to attack Leeds fans outside the ground after.
Yeah.
You know, the whole stadium just seemed to have thrown its toys out the pram, well and truly.
It was their party, wasn't it, Reese? It was their party.
And I'm so glad that we pissed
here.
all over
All
it.
we have to do is turn up. Aren't we so fucking great? Look at us. And Sky were like, "Oh, that Saint's great. Oh my god, Paul Leeds, what they're gonna do?" Paul Leeds patting us on head, and then we just turned up, kicked him in bollocks, and said, "See you later." And not one of them could stand it.
To be fair to Barry on the Thursday night coverage of the game for Warrington did say at the end of that game that he thought Leeds would win.
Of course he did.
Good old Barry.
The Leeds lad.
When Phil Clark tipped Leeds.
Phil Clark
did he?
as well. Kudos to old Clark.
Yeah.
Finally backed us. That was it, you see. Because Phil Clark said it, he gave Saints the kiss of death.
Yeah.
So as soon as those words fell out of his mouth, I knew it was confirmed that we were going to win the game. The Matautia late hit on Caesar was a yellow card. Now that moron, John Wilkin, he said something. I made a note here. He said something along the lines of, "It's late, it's reckless, it's not needed, and it needs to be out the game." That was for Matautia on Caesar. Did you agree with that, Cam, on that hit?
Yeah, it were the kind of hit that we've seen. Really, you know, they throw the book at the moment, the last few years. And I'm not trying to. I think Matauti is actually a really good player. I want to make that very clear, but it's not the first time I've seen him produce a hit like that. And my mind goes back to, I think he got sin-binned in 2021 against Catalan. In a very similar situation where I remember him going in back of an half-back and the red jolts. I get that it's a really fine line for forwards now because they're told to put on that inside pressure. But I mean, the fact that they basically got it wrong 3 times, you know, clearly something won't quite right for St Helens. I mean, Phil Clark said after the game yesterday, he felt like they were like over aggressive. And I think that maybe speaks to, you know, the fact that it was their homecoming and there was all that sort of like emotion and probably a hint of fatigue because of the kind of week that they've had. And I've probably just let it get to them. They did sort of, in times it was almost like Saints were trying too hard to like bully us and it came back to bite them.
I think the Sirenen one was a bit soft for me.
Yeah,
it was late. And if they're making a rule, they're making a deal of it, and they're making a deal of it. The Matautia one, for me, nearly flirted with a red. Because if you look at that one on the Hurrell, I think Matautia, it was just whiplash, wasn't it? I don't think he actually hit Caesar's head. It was just the force of the contact made.
You just see Caesar's head go back.
Yeah, but if Matautia made contact with Caesar's head there, that's a red. Because that's what happened with Hurrell. So it was very, very close. I thought Sirenens was a bit soft personally, but again, I don't care.
And then we come to the red card. Conrad Hurrell on Richie Myler. Clear shoulder to the head. And that moron, John Wilkin. So remember he said about Matauti, it's late, it's reckless, not needed in the game. We have a clear Conrad Hurrell shoulder to Richie Myler's face. And that moron, John Wilkin, says, Myler stays down here as he knows if he does, Hurrell will be in trouble.
He stays down because he gets put on his arse.
Yes, John. Yes, Reese. John, the reason Richie Myler is on the floor on his back is because a 22-stone Tongan has just ran at him at a great speed and shouldered him straight to the face. He's not play acting, John.
If you rewatch the coverage and you watch the highlights, straight away, it's not like Myler's rolling on the ground going like this. Straight away, the linesman's waving his flag. Straight away. It's the linesman that gives it in that instance. But interesting with that one, I said to my mate about 10 minutes to go, Hurrell's knackered.
Yeah.
It was the point, he just tried to chase Fussy Tua, and Fussy Tua kicked it out on the full when he was running down the wing. But you could tell Hurrell was knackered, and I was like, say to my mate, just go down Hurrell's side. He's knackered. And then obviously he puts in that lazy shot on Myler, which again I didn't enjoy because he hit Myler. I enjoyed it because he got sent off.
Yeah, You agree with the ref, Cameron?
I was going to say, what did you make to his antics going off the field?
What, kicking the bottle?
This type of stuff, and Trent Merrin were quite petulant at Leeds. You know, chatting to the ref, and we'd get marched back 10. And Trent Merrin used to drive me nuts at times. Luke Gale's whole career in a Leeds shirt and a Cash shirt is so petulant, and it drives me nuts. I've said it loads on this podcast about how talking back to the ref drives me mental. Blake Austin did it last night. Drives me nuts. So what's the point? If you've been shown a red card, why is Hurrell going to the ref? What's he saying? What's going to change
his
in
mind,
that moment?
is he?
No, what's going to change in that moment? Oh, now that you've either abused me or explained it in your way. Oh, yeah, actually, I'll rescind this red card immediately and you can stay on, Conrad.
Yeah.
It were a weird one, wasn't it?
Tell you what I thought was lucky to stay in the pitch, actually, was Louis McCarthy-Scarsbrook. Because straight after Sheridan got a yellow, he copped Sangare around the head as well. And I thought that was worse than Sheridan's. But what I loved about that one, I mean, Sangare didn't stand out as much yesterday, but I was pleased to see him on the pitch earlier than we have done. But what I loved straight away after that whole little scuffle was Sangare put his hand up for the ball straight away and then went and found Louis McCarthy-Scarsbrook to run in at him. And that, when you talk about being petulant and stuff, that's, you know, you meant to channel that frustration into a game, aren't you? And manage it better. And that's kind of how you should, in my opinion, should be managing it. You take it out in the game. But yeah, I thought LMS was lucky to not get a yellow as well.
I agree. I think this win was for the Leeds fans that travelled over. They were all, every single one of those that travelled over were believers, apart from one, Laurie. He didn't believe. He was still there. But the rest of them...
He's still there in disbelief. He's still sat there in the terrace. Just can't believe it. He still stood there going, huh?
He's still... Do you think... Because obviously James Roby didn't play Cameron. Do you think he is that big of a miss for Saints? Because he is an awesome player.
If you'd have asked me that before the game, I wouldn't have said they'd miss him that much. I didn't think they'd miss him at all. But it was in those moments where Saints lost that usual composure that we associate with them that I feel like they missed him. I mean, a good example would be the World Cup challenge of the Saints kind of threw it away whilst James Roby wasn't on the field. And then in extra time, that's when James Roby came back on. And it kind of changed. You know, the Saints players have been, gone on record and said, he didn't actually say anything. But he just calms everybody down. And I feel like, that's what they missed. I mean, a good comparison, the most obvious comparison would probably be Kev. Like when he left after 15, it almost took us an entire season. I mean, I know we had other issues in 2016, but you could argue it took us an entire season for still quite a talented squad to adjust to not having that leadership there. Because by the time we did adjust, we won the grand final, and then we had to readjust again. But I just feel like he knits everything together. He keeps Saints composed, and he took that composure out of them, and it's like their biggest strengths became their biggest weakness because they became, they're such an aggressive side. They're such a side who gets in your face and makes it really difficult. But they almost took it too far. And I feel like he's there to rein him in. He took him out and it wasn't, they just kind of lost control.
Agree with that, Reese?
Yeah. I don't think I can add anything else to what Cam said. I think he said it perfectly.
So, Reese, just going back to the mailbag and the back of the Hull review, you predicted us to lose.
I did.
So, at what stage?
I've already repented. I repented at the start.
No, you have, and you are forgiven. Everyone's forgiven. But at what stage did you feel we could win this game, or did you feel we were going? Was there a moment in the game, Reese, where you were like, oh my God, we're going to win, or oh my God, we could win? And when was that?
It certainly wasn't when Alford dropped the ball on our own line. Let's put it that way.
Good at that.
I thought we were in it at half-time. At half-time, I went in going, we probably should be ahead here. We've given them 6 points, really. we've bombed another chance. I just thought we probably should have been ahead. But the point I believed in it was when we got that Reece Martin got his second try and we went just a try behind, because at that point Saints looked knackered, they were getting frustrated, and we were on the front foot. So as soon as we got that try in the second half, I was like, I think we've got this.
Cameron?
I don't actually ever think I ever thought Leeds were going to... Well, what I'll say...
We're going to lose.
Publicly, I said, I was like, yeah, Leeds are going to go
You could have
there.
gone on the record there. Sorry to interrupt, but you could have just gone on the record, because we haven't spoken to you since pre-season, I think. You could have gone on the record then and said, no, I kind of felt we were going to win by 1.
Yeah, I should have done, shouldn't I? But I'll be honest. All week I was publicly saying Leeds were going to lose, or that Leeds were going to get battered. I did have a sneaky feeling. I was like, that'd be the most Leeds thing ever to end this terrible run against St Helens in this particular game. So I had that sneaky feeling. But during the game, I just so used to seeing St Helens get the rub of the green against Leeds. I'm not... that you make your own looking spot. So I can, Saints are a cut above Leeds, so you can't complain too much about it sometimes. But I always expected things to go wrong, especially with the Alfort's mistake and some other moments like when we knock on at the kickoff and things like that. To me, I kept thinking this is going to be one of those games where we've actually been really good, but we've been a bit stupid and we've thrown it away. And then at the end of it, they're all going to say, well, that's a sign of a good side. Saints have won this game, but they've not been at the best, that kind of thing. So to actually pull it out of the bag, that showed a lot of class.
It did. Sorry, I'm just reading my notes there thinking, God, I've so many. Where can we go next? What was your moment of the game, Cameron? Was there a specific moment? Was it just so obvious as Blake Austin, or was there something else?
It's that Walters tackle.
I agree. Yes, I agree.
It was just, I suppose if there was a moment where I thought Leeds might win, it was when the words came out of Chris Kendall's mouth that it wasn't going to give a shoulder charge. And I did find that I was laughing. I was so surprised because they're all saying on Sky it's going to be a shoulder charge. And there'd been such a long delay. Usually, after a delay like that, I'm not trying to be critical of referees here, but usually after a long delay like that, what happens then is the thing that caused the delay, not usually the running in, but it's the actual tackle is the thing that gets penalised, even if it maybe shouldn't have been, because that's kind of the easy decision to make. So I think actually Chris Kendall needs a lot of praise. He actually stuck to his guns. He didn't let what happened afterwards change his opinion. Yeah. He was always like, that's not a shoulder charge. Mm-hmm. And to see that, having, heard people on Sky go, yeah, that's a shoulder charge. It's a shoulder charge. It's going to be penalty to St Helens. It was just, that will when sort of the momentum fully changed. And Paul Wellens has said it himself, actually, that he was asked, do you think that moment got into your players' heads? And he goes, probably. I think he said yes, potentially. Probably did.
Yeah. Mm.
To be fair to Wellens, he didn't.
He was
really
brilliant
moan in the interview. I was fully preparing to blame the referee, but he didn't really have a go. He said Leeds deserved to win at the very start of his interview, if I remember rightly.
Yeah, absolute credit to Paul Wellens. I thought he handled it really well, and I think his assessment is actually really fair. I think, there were some decisions that went against Saints, but there were some decisions that went against Leeds. That's how it goes. It always will go like that. It all comes out in the wash. But it was Saints who shot themselves in the foot. Like I said earlier, they let what their strengths are go too far, and they became ill-disciplined and lost their composure. And Wellens recognised that, and he says he'll address that. So that's their problem.
Mm. Charlie's just said in the YouTube comments that he thinks Paul Wellens is the only Saint who did take it well. And, that's a good point, Charlie. He was the only one. Although Paul Wellens, he did speak well after the game, but I think he did the written media and things in the post-presser, and he did say he wants to speak to the RFL about some of the decisions. So clearly he's speaking to them this week and saying, what about us? You told us we get all the decisions, no one else.
That wasn't the agreement.
Yeah. send the mafia around. So obviously we did win the game.
Really? I'd not noticed.
As predicted. Now, due to the build-up, Saints being quite dominant, winning the World Cup challenge, and everyone expecting, well, majority expecting Saints to win. Leeds winning, Twitter was last night, today, has been glorious in terms of laughing at the sad and quite frankly, pathetic Saints fans after losing one game. Some of the stuff I saw one fan. It was just like it wasn't like a fan page or podcast or nothing. Can't remember what, but it said something along the lines of, about the decisions not going their way. Or he said something like, "I would like those decisions back during the season," as if it's like we're owed them now. Because
that's how it's worked. Kendall gets his book out and goes,
you
sorry,
Saints."
Yeah, sorry, yeah, you weren't happy with those 3 penalties, so I owe you 3 penalties.
So now you owe us one. As if it's gonna. What were some of your highlights from Twitter, Reese?
Just the general people saying that Kendall was crap. Really, I mean, there were some quite horrible comments really that shouldn't have been done, but just the general that just made me laugh. Like when what's the word I'm looking for? When they've had the luck of the draw so much, and just to see the amount of tears that they had on their own Twitter. And to be fair, some Saints fans were coming out and saying, "No, it was right. It wasn't all tears from all Saints."
Oh, he's breaking up.
Putting clips out, and there was one clip.
Oh, he's back,
and it was a late tackle.
Cameron, did you see the Saints fans at the end there with Rowan? I thought there were 2 or 3 as Rowan were waiting for his Sky interview, and they were kind of giving him verbals, giving him loads of stick. Did you see that? And what did you make of that?
It's not a good look, is it? I mean, look, it probably is a minority, but as always in life, it always tends to be the minority that it's always a vocal minority. Yeah. I'd like to think, and I can't weigh in on this because, it's impossible to weigh in on it, but I'd like to think the majority of the Saints fans, were well behaved and probably were well behaved after the defeat. But though there's always that small minority, and it happens everywhere in life, that ruins it for everybody else. And they'll probably look back and watch Sky if they've got it recorded and they've rewatched it, and they're probably a bit embarrassed. I thought Rowan dealt with the situation really well. How cool he was, and even when he was pressed on Sky about the situation, he just said, "I'm fine. It's a shame that there's a few people," but then he was more focused on the result, and a lesser person might have sat there and moaned about it, but
I bet Darryl Powell would have had a right moan about that.
Rowan really showed his class there. I think both coaches in the post-match stuff were showed their class and put the focus on the right places.
I don't get the shouting at Rowan though from the Saints fans at the end though, because it's not like Rowan's made the decisions. He's coached the Leeds team. It's not like he's not influenced the game other than being a great coach and winning the game, obviously.
It's like booing Aizen and Caesar as well. I didn't get that. I mean, what did Aiden do wrong?
Well, he actually did a lot right for a change. Maybe that's what he did wrong. He actually performed.
Yeah, that's what the Saints fans were saying to him. You're supposed to be rubbish.
Yeah.
What's this playing really well and winning man of the match? Did you agree with the man of the match, Cameron? Do you think it was Caesar?
I were a bit surprised.
I thought it was Jared O'Connor personally.
There were a few, weren't there? It could have gone to Jared O'Connor. We've mentioned Reece Martin. Austin obviously was the match winner. It was one of them though where it almost didn't matter who got the man of the match. I'm glad it was Caesar though, because it's nice to see him after a tough start to the season. He really performed, so it's nice to see him really get that reward for that performance. And sometimes those little things can really help a player's mentality, and hopefully he can kick on. Because look, when he is at his best, as I said earlier, I thoroughly enjoy watching him play, and I think he can be a really top halfback. Well, he's already shown that he's a top halfback.
It's
but
a
he just
shame they
needs to
didn't
do it
give
more
it to.
consistently.
It's a shame they didn't give it to Sam Walters because the tears.
Yeah.
Oh God, could you imagine?
Shits and giggles. Yeah.
Oh.
Well, on Sky, I was certain Aiden was going to give him the medal afterwards, because if you watch after his interview, whilst Brian Carney's begins to talk about Rowan, you see Aiden go around back, and Sam Walters is there, and he takes the medal off, and I'm like, he's not going to give it to Sam Walters, is he? Just to really rub it in, but he didn't. But for a minute, I was like, is he going to do that?
Hand it over to the kid. Well played, kid. Well played. I thought it was Jared O'Connor, but it's one of those games where whoever someone chooses, you're just like, yeah, probably, yeah.
You can see it, yeah.
You can argue a case.
Could have been Nene, could have been Ash,
Yeah.
could have been
Reece Martin. I said it was Reece Martin's best game in a Leeds shirt, but gave man of the match to Jared O'Connor.
I know. That must make Jared's performance more bloody amazing.
I don't think it's Jared's best performance in a Leeds shirt. He's definitely up there, but it wasn't his best.
Yeah, Catalan away.
I thought Wigan.
Wigan away.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's 3.
The kid's got some really good performances under his belt, let's be honest.
He's awesome. He should be our long-term hooker now.
Well, I think he will be now. I think he is.
I think that's it, yeah.
That's remarkably, we've ended up, it's almost like accidentally finding our new long-term hooker who I think can play that role for the next decade. And it's not Corey Johnson. You know, that's what really I find really surprising is no one would have ever predicted it. I mean, it might still not come to pass, I suppose, but I think it will. I mean, do you remember when he made his debut at hooker, and he was very much a loose forward playing hooker in those early games, and I always thought it was a bit of a weakness playing there. Even in 2021, I think we played Catalan at Headingley, and we had a few injuries, so we had to come on at 9, and that's when it all unravelled for us. That particular day, it came on at 9, and it just all went wrong all of a sudden. So to go from there to where he is now as a number 9, bloody brilliant.
Awesome. Do you think this will kickstart the year now, Reece? Think that we'll take this momentum now and just slowly chip away all the way to the Challenge Cup final, League Leaders Shield, and Grand Final?
Yeah, you can't walk away not feeling positive in the energy after that. You know, that the energy from the fans as well. That means that, you know, instead of us going 3 losses on the bounce and coming back to Headingley with no wins on the board, and potentially people deciding not to bother, is, you know, the difference it'll make to win in the way that they've won should really set the standard now going forward and set them off from there. So I think we really will kick on, and it'll be the same for the fans now. The fans' energy, you can feel has changed dramatically overnight, and that means that Headingley should be rammed next Friday. We've got a game against Wakefield, and you can't take it for granted because it's their FA Cup final, whatever you want to call it. But I think this could be the you know, the starting post, if you like, for the rest of the season.
You agree with that, Cam?
What I'd say is I think if our first home game, if our first game of the season had been at home, regardless of who it was against, I think we'd have won, because the feel good factor was still there from last season.
Yeah,
and I feel like we'd have come to Headingley and we'd have had such a good atmosphere, and I think we'd have won. The defeat to Warrington was unfortunately the last thing we needed, and I think it really took the wind out of anyone's sails, including the supporters. I don't think the atmosphere for the whole game was as good as it would have been if that had been the first game of the season and everyone had that optimism. So for it's like a palate cleanser is last night. It's like a mini 2022 was that game, you know, a real positive thing full of optimism that we can now, you know, I think there should be a really good crowd at Headingley this week. But ironically, it ends up being that this is the big test now, because, you know, we've gone and beaten Saints. You've got to back that up now, because if you don't back it up, you might as well not have beaten Saints. You know, that's the really important thing. You've got to kick on.
Have we still got some players to highlight? Because there's still players that I need to talk about.
Go for it.
Richie Myler, I thought I've been critical of Richie in the opening 2 games, and I don't think he was perfect last night, but I thought he was a lot better, and he obviously ended up having 2 assists as well.
Yeah, his link-up play joining the back, as part of that creativity was much better, and his running with the ball as well was much better. I thought James McDonnell quietly went about a really good shift.
Wow, we haven't even spoke about him. Made his debut.
Just quietly went about. It was you didn't notice him much, but also you can see that he's put a lot of work. I think I said 36 tackles. I think he made.
It was a shot with tackling.
38 tackles in total. So, he didn't look out of place at all.
Yeah.
He quietly went about his job and did it.
Biggest compliment you could pay him, I reckon. He didn't notice that he was making his debut or settled in really well. Played really well, especially in defence.
Yeah, so I thought obviously Ash. I thought Ash was brilliant again, and the guy, the people like Ash are key because they are Leeds through and through. The passion that they have, you could see how much it meant to him when he scored that try.
When he scored,
he got 200 meters. It's not an easy shift to get over 200 meters. So I thought I'm looking forward to Ash being back on the wing when Newman's back. Yeah. But I thought Ash was brilliant as well.
How many meters?
Wingers,
go ahead, Cam.
I want to give a shout out to Daryl Alforts because he came in for some stick after the Hull FC game, and a lot of people focus on obviously the error that he made last night as well. But actually, I thought he did a lot more good than he did bad, and I thought it was one of the few bright spots against Warrington. And yes, I mean obviously his run for the last try that we scored, when he comes back inside, that's why we signed him. Because he's one of the best players in the league at busting tackles, and playing that off the cuff rugby. So I were really impressed with him, and it was interesting actually tactically that we moved him out onto the right wing, didn't we?
Right wing, yeah.
He's traditionally left wing. He was always left wing at Cass, left wing for us in first 2 games. So it's interesting to see him over on right wing. I don't know if I'd have been in the press conference, I'd have asked Rowan why, but I don't know why. But it certainly worked.
How many meters did Aidan Caesar get again, Reese?
So he got 74. So obviously that ups his total for the season by somewhat because he only had 12 within 2 games.
So much better. What an incredible improvement!
I think that's the sweet spot for a halfback as well.
Yeah,
I was saying this to my dad the other day. When we beat Warrington 40 points to 4 last year. George Williams ran over 100 meters, but it didn't matter. He's wasted running that much because as a halfback, you need to find the balance. So you can run too much as a half. Now, alternatively, you can run too little, which is what Aidan's been doing in the first 2 games. It's about 70 meters. That's the sweet spot for me. That's you're running enough to create the doubt, but also you're passing it enough to actually use the doubt.
Blake Austin.
He got 64 meters, did Blake Austin.
So again,
it's around that sweet spot. That's what Austin's got around the last 2 games as well.
So Cam's bang on. That's what they bang on around between 60 and 80.
That's where you want.
That's exactly where you need to be. And it's no coincidence that they both had good games and they're both within that tolerance.
I tell you who also got over 100, which surprised me, was Fussy.
Really?
Fussy got 118 meters and 21 carries. So,
I reckon that's first time in his Leeds career.
No, because he got 100 last week.
Did he?
Yeah, last week he had 20-odd carries as well, and he was over 100. He's. I think what it's showing as well for Fussy at the moment is he's working hard to carry the ball. Like he's carried the ball more than anyone else, with the exception of his Lord and Saviour with the mullet, Cam Smith.
Appreciation.
He's carried more. He carried more than anyone else. He carried the most in the last game as well. So Fussy's trying to. He's working hard and putting some shift in. We haven't spoke about Cam, have we?
No.
Another try. Again, leading the tackles. If I look how many tackles Cam made, 63 tackles that Cam made. He carried the ball 24 times. He also made. Did he get a clean break? Yeah, he got a clean break as well. I thought Cam was, but he made a couple of errors, like he always kind of tends to do now and then.
Just gloss over that.
We'll gloss over that, but yeah. But I thought it was brilliant. Thought it was really, really good, and more importantly, his mullet is looking really, really good. It's starting to look really good. It's got some time.
I think just on this beautiful mullet, I think he's had a little trim from the whole game. I think the front's been faded a little bit because it makes the back look a little longer. And
we spoke about this beforehand. I'm convinced we're influencing this.
Yep. Well, obviously.
I'm convinced that Cam's listening because obviously...
Talk about delusion.
Yeah. One day I'm going to meet Cam and I'm just going to stroke his mullet. I'm just going to put my hand for it. Not going to say anything. Not going to say anything to him. I'm just going to put a hand for his mullet.
Not going to introduce yourself. Just going to start stroking his hair. And
I'll just say I'll just start stroking his hair and saying I'm the founder of the Cam Smith Appreciation Society, and that's
when we'll both get thumped in the stomach.
Yeah. No, I thought Cam was good again. Though, really, really good, and he's really coming into a leader. I think is Cam.
Yeah, he's the word out of my mouth. I think he's leading. I think at the touch screen at the end, he was.
It showed his intelligence, didn't it? His rugby intelligence.
Insightful, beautiful mullet, brought the game down, spoke well, little bits of humour in there too. I just love him to bits. You must be on the same line of thinking, Cameron, as us.
Oh, I love him. I think he's one of my favourite players at the moment. I also think, look, we're actually in a decent time period in terms of really good 13s in Super League, but I think he's right up there. I'd put him in the same breath as Morgan Knowles. Different player to Morgan Knowles.
No, it's miles better than Morgan Knowles.
They're very different style. I mean, you mentioned his errors there, Reece, but I just think that's part and parcel of the style that he plays, but also the style that Leeds play.
I agree.
You know, you've got to take that with it, and you know, he's just a joy to watch. And as good as Morgan Knowles is, personally,
not very good.
From a personal point of view, I'd rather watch a loose forward who's going to play the game a bit more like Cam Smith.
I thought you were going to say I'd rather watch a loose forward with a mullet.
Well, yeah, I would. I'd rather watch a player like Cam Smith, a loose forward like Cam Smith in the middle, shifting the ball, really chancing his arm and playing that way. And I do actually think that style of loose forward is making a return. I think we are, because we had that spell, didn't we, where people were just playing another back row
extra
at loose
prop,
forward or an extra prop. They seem to be the two. Morgan Knowles kind of fits that. He's a bit more dynamic, I suppose. I mean, right now you kind of got guys like Morgan Knowles and Luke Yates who are a bit more dynamic than a prop, but still get through loads of work. And then you've got your Cam Smiths who have that sort of skill factor to them. And I do think the ball playing 13 is coming back.
That type of style, though, that Reece, that Rowan has us playing, that attacking style and throwing it about and moving the ball, we are going to see more errors, aren't we? But would you prefer to see us play like we did last night against Saints and chuck it about? And, you know, there are going to be errors, but would you rather see that than a more structured, like, 6 tackles and a kick?
I think we're better when there is no structure.
Yeah.
It's when the chaos is there. And I think, you know, with Cam playing that role as that playmaking loose, it means you've got 5 playmakers on the pitch, really. You've got your fullback, your 2 halves, your hooker, and your loose. So you've got 5 people who at any point can produce something.
Can produce a play,
Produce a play out of nothing. And that erraticness, unstructured sort of play, the offloads and you know, playing like that works when you've got those players. And like you say, you are going to make more mistakes, but for every mistake, it'll work 3 or 4 times.
On the point about style as well is, and I know it's not really that important what I'm about to say for right now, but in general, having an off-the-cuff style of play, I think is more effective when you get to the business end of the season. Because if you think back about all Leeds' great grand final tries, how many of them tries come from organised plays, you know, set plays? Very few. In general, in grand finals, you're very unlikely to score from a set play because defenses tend to be that good when you get to the end of the season. You know, there's that level of desperation that set plays, people just sort of read them and deal with them. You need that kind of off-the-cuff style, I think, which is why I think that Leeds team, you know, the golden generation was so good because they had an off-the-cuff style. So obviously, it's maybe not as what I'm saying right now isn't maybe that relevant when you're only 4 rounds into a season. Well, 3, but then it'd be 4 next week is what I'm trying to say. But I think it has even more merit when you get to the big games.
I agree. And we are going all the way to all of those big games. So this style will just fall into place perfectly for those final appearances when we win each and every one of them. Is there anyone else, Reese, that we haven't spoken about?
Obviously, we wish Cruz all the best because hopefully
Yes,
that
we
injury
do.
is not as bad as it was. I thought Tom Holroyd handled Alex Walmsley well. My observations were that I thought he handled him quite well. His stats don't really support that, but I thought Holroyd played well. I thought Tetivano put a shift in defence, didn't really carry as much as usual, and I think that is literally every single player. We've spoken about apart from Dono, who, bless him,
he ain't got a penalty this season.
He got
what's going on?
He got lynched.
What is going on?
He got lynched twice in that game, literally on back-to-back sets. And he was on the second one. He's just looking at the referee, and I'm like, what's he got to do to get his high tackle penalty?
I think I call him Jack Grealish's Super League because obviously Grealish is the most fouled player in the Premier League, and I've always said that's James Donaldson because of his running style. He always gets clocked around the head. He's not had one head-eye tackle this year, and I'm just like, what?
Do you know, like James Bentley's got his card marked for referees, for being a walking red card, walking sin bin. I feel now with James Donaldson, he's in that same territory, but for the head-eye penalty shot.
Well, yeah, we know he just runs in head first, head down. So every tackle is a head-high tackle.
It's like with Paul Robbie, bless him. He didn't always get the head-high tackles he deserved because referee were like, well, their arms are at his head height, so I can't really. So he's taken on that mantle from Rob Burrow.
Brilliant. So that's everything Saints wrapped up. Are we all happy?
I don't think we can squeeze any more out of that. We've been able to go through every single player and pretty much be a positive.
And also kick the boot in to Saints as well.
And kick the boot to Saints, yeah. I mean, what
enjoyable.
What a great.
So we did win the game by a point, thanks to Blake Austin's very late drop goal. On to Wakefield, gentlemen. In terms of the squad, Cameron, do you want to see any changes after this victory?
I mean, it's always hard changing a winning team. I'm not sure how much. To me, James Bentley maybe don't get back into the team. I'm not sure about Sam Lasone either. Obviously, those two will be in the mix. You'd think if Harry Newman's back there, he's the kind of player who instantly does come back into the side. The reason I say what I say about Bentley and Lasone is the guys who came in to replace. Well, I mean, Bentley's been out for a while, but the guys who were playing instead of those two on Friday did just such a good job. Are you really going to drop Sam Walters and James McDonald after they played that well? Against the world champion.
Someone's got to go though, haven't we? Gannon might be coming back, might be back this week, couldn't he? So we're obviously
I'm not sure he will play
now the positive is, unfortunately, a player is going to have to drop from that team, and probably, like you say, a bit unfairly. But that's a good position to be in if you're having to struggle to choose what that team looks like. I don't think the Sony will be in there personally. I'd love to see Leon Ruin in there, but I don't think he'll be involved now with the injuries coming back. So with Gannon and Bentley back, someone's got to drop. I imagine it would be Donaldson.
We've got to remember as well that Reese, Leeming's injured, so that kind of slot's available.
Do you think we could see the return of the mighty Richie Myler to the hooking role if Luke Hooley's about?
Please no.
No.
Please no.
We've just been waxing lyrical about Jared O'Connor.
No, I'm not mean as like the starting number 9. I mean as like
on the utility. Probably.
Yeah.
Corey didn't mention it on the mailbag, didn't he?
I mean, obviously, Corey Johnson played for the reserves and played quite well. On Thursday night, I think it was. Yeah, it was. But I'm not sure I'd want to throw him immediately back in. So it's a case of can Jared do 80 minutes? I suppose what will really happen is I think Jared will probably start. He'll get a 10-minute breathing spell where we probably won't play with a natural hooker. We'll probably just play with 6 out-and-out forwards, and Richie will drop in at 9 because he did actually do that against Castleford at the end of last season, if you remember. I'm I'm not sure Gannon will play next week.
I think that might be...
his time will have elapsed. He'll have done his 10 days. But something I feel like I've noticed about Rowan is he protects Morgan Gannon quite well. And what I mean by that is, I said this on podcast a while ago, to me, Morgan Gannon is our chance to do Stevie Ward right. Very similar players, worlds of potential, but I always feel like we used Stevie Ward too much too soon. And that's why he ended up getting so many injuries. With Morgan Gannon, we could have maybe tried to rush him back for grand final last year, but we didn't. Yeah. I feel like we protect him, and his 10 days will pass, I think, probably at the start of the next game week. So I think I'd probably be in the squad, but I don't actually think he'll play.
You've got to remember he did get concussed towards the end of last year, didn't he, as well?
Yeah, he did.
Exactly.
This is our final.
Yeah. So they'll want to probably protect him a bit more for that. So maybe you're right, Cam.
I agree. Yeah. And I agree. Just no need to throw him back in that early, give him that extra time.
Especially if Bentley's back.
Exactly.
You just put Bentley in and give Gannon as long as we can, as long as required, as long as he's okay. That's the predominant thing here. Prediction, Reese, for the Wakefield game?
I'm going to predict a hat-trick for Nene McDonald.
You see, this is what we needed. We needed a real in-depth prediction.
Yeah.
He's going to tell us what's going to happen in every minute.
I'm going to tell you, Caesar will get 75 metres. Yeah. No, a hat-trick for Nene McDonald and a 20-point win.
Cam?
I'm feeling good. If we play like we did against Saints, especially if we manage to cut out the errors, we should have a fairly decent win. I don't think it's the foregone conclusion some people might, because I think Wakefield can be a handy side. I know they got their asses handed to them by Wigan, but their 2 home games, they've actually been really competitive against 2 teams people are expecting to be near the top in Catalan and Huddersfield. So they'll be difficult to beat, but we should have the beating on them.
Prediction?
I'll go 30 points to 12.
Nice. Leeds against Wakefield next week, they're going to score a minimum of 50 points.
So he's listened to what I've just said.
That's a minimum.
It'll be tough to beat, and then he goes 50.
A minimum
to me on this podcast.
That's the absolute lowest amount Leeds will score on Friday. 50. And
how many will Wakefield score?
Waking might score between 8 and 12 points, I reckon.
A
couple of points coming late on. And Ash Hanley is going to score 5 tries on Friday. 5. So everybody listening, 5 tries from Ash, and Leeds will score a minimum of 50.
I really appreciate you giving us the kiss of death, Lottie. I really appreciate it.
Hey, he's been beat Saints
and won. Prediction right.
Yeah, he only gets about 1 prediction right per season.
Yeah, but we don't talk about that. I'm glad you mentioned that at the end of the pod. Not at the beginning.
It still makes me laugh that people are taking the mick out of you on social media for that ingest comment about going unbeaten this season.
People still bring it up. Although coincidentally, not many people retweeting the fact that I predicted Leeds to beat St Helens.
No,
but that tweet still gets some traction.
It does, honestly. I see it all the time.
Some of my friends, or I think someone at work, showed me it from like Facebook or.
I'm gonna say I've seen it on Facebook. Someone screenshotting it and started putting in like.
Oh my God, that was kind of tongue in cheek. Cameron, Reese, everybody, thank you for listening. Thanks for your work, guys. Reese, just a quick one again. The intro was outstanding.
Should we have it one more time to finish the podcast?
Let's have it. I'm about to say, we're going to say goodbye now, but we're going to finish with this amazing intro, and we will be back next week to review the Wakefield game. Take it easy.
Leeds giving it some width, and Nene McDonald showing a bit of pace here. McDonald's got Myler inside him. Myler is being chased down. Here goes Hanley. Hanley, has he got the step? He certainly has. What a try that is from Leeds. Austin. He can get some height on the ball, doesn't get great distance on that one. And Caesar is underneath it, and Caesar puts a little kick in, and Reece Martin gathers, and Martin will roll over the line and surely get the try. Jared O'Connor, Big Sam, lovely ball, Cameron Smith. Get the ball away to Darrell Alfords. Alfords steps past the first. Darrell Alfords comes back across the field. One-handed. Walters. Back it goes. It's picked up by O'Connor. O'Connor to Myler. Myler looking for Martin. Martin skipping back in field. Reece Martin. Martin, has he got the ball down? Martin celebrates his second of the night. Charging back,
Sam Walters. Jack, there's nothing wrong with it, mate.
Yeah,
there's nothing wrong with it, Jack.